Welcome back. The entrepreneur farmer, like any other agricultural producer, faces substantial business risks. In order to create a stable operating environment, producers need to develop a risk mitigation strategy. Part of this strategy involves choosing the best corporate structure and being aware of legal issues specific to agriculture. We talked to Doris Bonora, partner at Dentons and a member of the Canadian Association of Farm Advisors, and she provided Neil with some valuable advice for structuring his farm business.
Hi, I'm Doris Bonora. I'm a partner with Dentons Canada. Dentons Canada is an international firm that practices in all areas of the law. We're in 52 countries. We have a particular interest in agricultural business, so we do work on the planning side and working for farmers in their business in terms of structuring their business, in terms of giving them advice as they go along. If they have to be involved in lawsuits, we're involved in that litigation. And we also do a lot of succession planning, so when farmers need to pass on their estates to their children, we do that succession planning for their wills, their enduring powers of attorney, and personal directives. I do all of that kind of work, as well as farmers also have a knack of getting into trouble when they die, and there's lots of horrible family fights that happen when farmers die. So we also get involved in that litigation end when we're trying to split up farms after someone dies, when they haven't actually done that good succession planning. So that's the overview with respect to what Dentons Canada does.
Now, Doris, you're a member of CAFA. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization and the role that you play with it?
Sure. So the Canadian Association of Farm Advisors is an amazing organization because it brings together farm advisors from all kinds of disciplines. So we have lawyers and accountants and financial advisors and farm consultants, all people who are involved in the agricultural business from all the different disciplines. And of course, farmers use all of those different disciplines. So it's amazing for us to get together and talk about problems from a legal perspective, from a consulting perspective, and an accounting perspective, and so that we learn from each other so that we can advise farmers in a very good way through learning from each other in that organization. So I would probably advise Neil to incorporate. Lots of farmers start off and they think, well, I'll just start off small, I'll just be my own little proprietor, and once I get bigger, I'm going to incorporate. And they obviously can do that. A proprietorship is a perfectly good way to run a business. And the other way to run a business would be through a partnership. So Neil and his wife could have a partnership and they could run their farm through that. And lots of farmers think, oh gosh, I don't want to spend the money to incorporate right away, and so they just start off small and worry about the incorporation later. My view would be the corporation is the best way to start off. It's a pretty small cost, and the corporation has a number of advantages. Number one, farming is a business that can have lots of liability. Your cow runs across a road and a car accident happens, and now you could be liable. You don't want to put all of your personal assets at risk because that happened to you. You can have any kind of farming accident, and then your personal assets are at risk, and the corporation insulates you from that. The corporation also has lots of tax advantages. So now the corporate tax rate in Alberta is 14% versus the highest personal rate at 39%. If you keep money in the corporation, you're going to save tax. The other thing you can do is both Neil and his wife can be shareholders in the corporation. So they'll be equal partners in that corporation. And from a tax perspective, they can get income splitting, so they can take money out in dividends, pay lower tax rates on those dividends, and share their income. Now, when they're both shareholders and both directors in that corporation, they will be equal partners in that corporation. So now they can work together as that corporation and run that corporation together. And they won't just be, he's going to do the farm work and she's going to do the business records. They should actually be running that corporation together and being involved in all aspects of the farm. So, farming is a business. We kind of think of farms as this little enterprise that happens, and it's often treated different than a business. Quite frankly, farming is a business like any other, and we never think twice about a business renting their warehouse or renting office space. Certainly here at Dentons, we don't own our office space, we rent it. And so I think that the new thinking for farmers is that leasing land isn't an issue, that you can definitely lease land, and that can be your inventory to start with, that you'll start to earn your income from. So you don't have to have this huge debt to start off your farming operation. If you're going to lease land, though, I would suggest that you need to be very cautious about the lease that you enter into. I see so many farmers who enter into leases that are on handshake agreements, or on, one-page agreements, or it's written on a napkin, and you can't be that way. Your land is your most important asset, for sure, in your farming operation, so you need to make sure that your farm lease is something that you can live with, that you can afford, and that will have lots of options for renewal, so that you can continue to use that land for as long as you want. Most farmers, of course, still want to buy land. So if you're going to do that, you need to think carefully about how you're going to finance that land, and again, be very intentional about checking out interest rates and figuring out how that's going to work, and that you can afford it. Of course, you don't have to buy all your land at once, and you can do that over a time period. Most farmers want to own the house they live in, though, and so they'll probably want to own that home quarter. Mostly, we would recommend that you not put your house into your corporation, because of course the whole purpose behind the corporation is that you want to protect your liability, or you want some protection from liability. So if you put your house in your corporation and your corporation gets sued, now your house is at risk. So for the most part, we would recommend that when you're looking at owning your house and the land your house is on, we would recommend that not be in your corporation. Anytime you're going to sign any agreement, you need to understand it. And I see lots of people who simply feel like they're presented with an agreement and they want to use the product and they don't really have a choice, so they just sign the agreement. My view would be, if you feel like you need to use that product and you don't have any other choices, then you don't also have a choice about reading that agreement. You need to read the agreement, you need to understand the agreement and what the obligations are, because these people who draft these agreements are going to draft them in such a way that they can be enforced. And that makes sense. They've spent millions of dollars developing the product, and they want to protect the product. And I think that farmers have to respect that. We want them to develop those products. And so if they're going to develop them, they'll want to enforce those agreements. So read the agreement, understand what your obligations are, and live within those obligations. If not, be prepared that they will sue. They spent a lot of money developing the product and hiring lawyers to develop the agreement. Undoubtedly, they'll spend a lot of money hiring lawyers to sue you if you don't live up to the agreement. So I would say you have a choice. Either you understand the agreement and live up to it, or you decide to use a different product. Well, first of all, I think that you need to choose your advisor well. So you're not just going to go to any law firm and assume that that person or that firm can meet your needs. I think you need to interview people and make sure that you feel comfortable with the person. So first of all, you want to choose someone who thinks they know a little bit about agriculture, because it is a very unique business. Secondly, you need to feel comfortable with that person. It's not just about, if you walk into that office and meet the person and you feel intimidated and you don't feel like he has or she has the time to talk to you, then you shouldn't hire them. Because I think your legal team should be someone you feel comfortable calling at any time that you have a question, and that you feel that you can talk to them about any aspect that comes up. If you're always feeling intimidated, you won't necessarily get the advice when you need it, which is perhaps in advance of the problem happening, as opposed to just calling them when the problem happens. The other part that you're looking for in your legal team from an agricultural perspective is the pure corporation stuff. So you want someone to incorporate for you, you want them to handle your annual returns. You also want someone, I think, who has somewhat of a tax expertise or knowledge. So perhaps the lawyer you deal with on a regular basis doesn't have that tax knowledge, but you want them to have someone who has some tax knowledge, because farming business is multidisciplinary. Your accountants need to talk to your lawyers, and they need to understand each other in terms of what they're doing, and they need to give each other ideas in terms of what might be best for you. So that's also, I think, what you're looking for from your legal team. Finally, I would say you want your legal team to be able to handle your succession planning. So it's not just about your day-to-day business affairs, but how will your business be passed on? And so can you have a legal team that can give you not just any will, but a will that matches you, matches your family, make sure that it has good ideas for agriculture. What I find sometimes is that farming wills have just been written down by the lawyer. So the farmer came in and said, here's what I want, and that's what was written down. And what you really want is someone who can say, hey, here's 10 ideas for your family on how to achieve your goals. And so you want lawyers who will give you ideas, not just take ideas from you and write them down. Because I think the goal of any good farming will is that your children will be getting together for Christmas the year after you die, and not just having a big fight and funding lawyers after you die. Well, I guess my final advice I'd give to him is that when you talk about a family business, it truly is that everyone has a role to play. And traditionally we've seen farm families where there's a wife who does the business and records and applies for grants, and it's the husband who goes out and drives the combine. But in fact, the new kind of family business is that everyone is involved in every aspect of farming, because it doesn't make sense for someone to know all the numbers and someone else to just be doing the work. Everybody needs to know how that works so that you can work together to figure out the most efficient way to run this business. You can make the most money with the business. When you meet with your advisors, you both know what's going on so that you can get the best advice and go back and do it. And so now the farm wife isn't the person who sits at the computer and does the work. She is actually involved in combining and feeding cattle and buying cattle, because it's important to know all of that aspect of the business, and vice versa. It's important for men to be involved in what do these grants mean, and how can I get the most out of this farming business from a financial perspective. You can't just go buy fertilizer. You need to know when to do that and how to do it and how to make the most effective use of your inputs. So I would say in building the farm business, it has to be that everyone is involved in every aspect. Of course, respecting your relative gifts, because we all have our own gifts and what we're best at, but you can't just break it down against on traditional roles. And I would say that in terms of building a family, if you have plans to have children, that the children need to understand that this is also a business, and that it can't just be run like a family farm. So we run into lots of trouble with farm families where they let their child move a trailer onto the land, and there's no agreements about what does that trailer mean in the future. Does he get to live there forever? Does he own the land underneath it? All of those things cause problems in families. If you treat it like a business and you say, yep, you can live on my farmland, but I'm going to have a lease with you so we all understand what the arrangement is, then it works much better for farm families in the future. So that would be my final advice to Neil.
Thanks, Doris. Let's sum up the key legal points for Neil. Consider incorporation to reduce liability. View the venture as a family farm business, spouse as partner. Select a legal team with agricultural experience. And be sure to read the contracts and understand what your responsibilities are. I want to add one more point. Be proactive when dealing with your legal environment. Assess your risks and take steps to reduce and eliminate them. A reactive approach will cost you more in terms of legal fees and penalties. When we come back, we talk with James Benke from AFSC about some key risk mitigation programs offered by his organization.